the sound of my hip cracking as I stood up from bed. That's what I remember most about turning 80. Not the birthday cake or the family gathering, but that sharp pop that echoed through my bones every single morning. 7 years later, my doctor couldn't believe what he was seeing on my x-rays. "Vivian," he said, staring at the screen like it was showing him magic, "these bones belong to someone in their 50s, not their 80s. I knew exactly why. It wasn't the calcium pills that had been sitting untouched in my medicine cabinet for months. It wasn't the physical therapy sessions I'd been skipping. It was one fruit, one simple fruit that changed everything. My grandmother used to peel these same fruits on her back porch in Alabama, her weathered hands working the knife with precision that came from decades of practice. I can still smell the sweet juice dripping onto the wooden planks, attracting those lazy summer flies. She lived to 94, never broke a bone, never needed a walker. I thought it was just good genes. I was wrong. It was what she ate every single day. The decline started slow, the way most things do when you're past 70. First, it was the ache in my lower back after standing too long at church. Then my wrist started hurting when I'd lift my grandson. The doctor said it was normal. "You're 81, Vivian. Your bones are getting thinner. It happens to everyone." He handed me a prescription for calcium supplements and told me to be more careful, as if being careful could stop time itself, as if tiptoeing through life would somehow make my skeleton stronger. I took those pills religiously for 2 years, big white tablets that stuck in my throat and left a chalky taste that lingered for hours. My medicine cabinet looked like a pharmacy. Calcium, vitamin D, magnesium, all the things the internet said would save me. But my bones kept deteriorating. The x-rays showed it clearly. My hip density dropping, my spine compressing, my whole frame shrinking inward like I was folding into myself. My daughter Sarah started calling every day. "Mom, you need to be more careful." There was that word again, careful. She wanted me to get one of those medical alert necklaces, the kind that screams, "I'm old and fragile," to anyone who looks at you. She talked about moving me to assisted living, about how the house was too much for someone my age. Someone my age, as if 83 was some kind of disease instead of an achievement. I almost didn't tell this part, but something tells me you're the kind of person who stays. Subscribe. There's more coming. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in March. I was reaching for a jar of jam on the top shelf, something I'd done thousands of times before. But this time, when I stretched up, I felt something give way in my spine. Not a crack, not a pop, but a sinking feeling, like something inside me had just surrendered. I spent 3 days on the couch, unable to move without shooting pain. Sarah found me there when she came by with groceries. "That's it, Mom," she said, her voice tight with worry and frustration. "You can't live alone anymore. This is getting dangerous." Dangerous. My own daughter thought I was dangerous to myself. The next week, she scheduled an appointment with an orthopedic specialist. Dr. Martinez was younger than my grandson, with smooth hands that had never known real work. He looked at my x-rays and shook his head. "Mrs. Rhodes, your bone density is concerning. We need to start aggressive treatment immediately." Aggressive treatment. He rattled off names of medications I couldn't pronounce, drugs that would cost more than my monthly Social Security check, and came with side effects that sounded worse than the problem they were supposed to fix. Nausea, dizziness, jawbone death. Jawbone death. I nodded and took his pamphlets, but inside, I was screaming. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. Not with me becoming a collection of prescriptions and precautions, shuffling through my remaining years in fear of my own shadow. That night, I called my sister Ruth in Mobile. She was 89 and still tending her own garden, still driving to the grocery store, still living like she had decades left instead of years. "Ruth," I said, "what's your secret? How are you still so strong?" She laughed, that deep belly laugh I remembered from our childhood. "Baby girl, ain't no secret. I eat what Mama ate, do what Mama did. These doctors don't know everything." What Mama ate. I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen, surrounded by all the modern solutions that weren't working. The calcium supplements, the vitamin D, the protein powders my daughter had bought me. All of it sitting there like expensive promises that had been broken. Then I remembered. Mama's fruit bowl. It sat in the center of her kitchen table, always full, always fresh. And in that bowl, every single day, were guavas. Small, green on the outside, pink on the inside, sweet and fragrant. She'd eat 2 or 3 with her breakfast, sometimes slice them over her oatmeal. "Good for what ails you," she used to say, though she never explained what she meant. I hadn't eaten a guava in probably 20 years. They weren't something you found at the regular grocery store, and I'd gotten out of the habit of looking for them. But the next morning, I drove to the Hispanic market on the other side of town. The smell hit me as soon as I walked through the door, that mix of spices and fresh produce that reminded me of childhood. And there they were, in a bin near the entrance, small green guavas, just like the ones from Mama's bowl. I read something that changed everything. It said patience after 60 is the fastest way to die forgotten. My doctor said wait. I stopped waiting. That guide is in the description below. I bought a bag of guavas and took them home. That first bite transported me instantly. The texture, slightly gritty but sweet. The floral scent that filled my whole mouth. It was like tasting my childhood again, like connecting with something I'd lost without even realizing it was gone. I started eating 2 guavas every morning with my coffee, not because I believed they would cure anything, but because they reminded me of better times, stronger times, because they tasted like hope instead of medicine. The changes were so gradual, I almost missed them. After 2 weeks, I realized I hadn't taken any ibuprofen for my back pain. After a month, I was sleeping through the night instead of waking up stiff and aching. After 2 months, I was reaching for things on high shelves without thinking twice about it. But I didn't connect it to the guavas. I thought maybe I was just having a good stretch, the way chronic pain sometimes ebbs and flows without explanation. It wasn't until my 3-month follow-up with Dr. Martinez that I understood what had been happening. He ordered new x-rays, expecting to see the continued decline he'd warned me about. But when he came back into the room, his expression was completely different. He kept looking from the x-rays to me, then back to the x-rays. "Mrs. Rhodes," he said slowly, I need to ask you something. Have you been taking the medications I prescribed? I shook my head. What about the calcium supplements? No, I told him. I'd stopped those too. They made me feel sick. He frowned and looked at the x-rays again. This doesn't make sense. Your bone density has improved significantly. In fact, these bones look like they belong to someone decades younger than you. That's when I told him about the guavas. He looked skeptical, the way doctors do when patients suggest that food might be better medicine than pharmaceuticals. But he couldn't argue with what he was seeing on those x-rays. Later, I did my own research. Guavas contain more vitamin C than oranges, more potassium than bananas. But more importantly, they're loaded with something called lycopene and manganese, compounds that directly support bone formation. The vitamin C helps your body absorb calcium more effectively than any supplement. The manganese activates enzymes that build bone matrix. My grandmother wasn't just eating fruit. She was giving her bones the exact nutrients they needed to stay strong, in a form her body could actually use. The synthetic calcium in those expensive pills, most of it was passing right through me. But the natural compounds in guavas were being absorbed completely, rebuilt into the structure of my skeleton cell by cell. 6 months later, Dr. Martinez admitted something that surprised me. You know, Mrs. Rhodes, we focus so much on prescribing medications that we sometimes forget food is the original medicine. Your grandmother knew something we're just starting to understand again. My daughter Sarah couldn't believe the change. The woman who'd been pushing for assisted living was now asking me for nutritional advice. My grandson started calling me Iron Grandma because I could keep up with him at the park. The medical alert necklace Sarah had ordered never made it out of the box. Most people walk away when stories get this heavy. The fact that you're still listening, that means something. Hit subscribe, I've got more to tell. The real transformation wasn't just physical. When your bones are strong, your whole relationship with your body changes. I stopped walking carefully, stopped moving like I was made of glass. I started gardening again, something I'd given up years before because kneeling and digging had become too painful. I planted my own guava tree in the backyard, though it'll be years before it produces fruit. But that's okay. Planning for years you might not see. That's what hope looks like when you're 87. I started shopping at that Hispanic market regularly, not just for guavas, but for all kinds of fruits and vegetables I'd forgotten existed. The owners, Maria and Carlos, started greeting me by name, recommending the ripest mangoes, the sweetest plantains. I was rediscovering flavors that had been part of my childhood, but somehow got lost in decades of processed foods and convenience. The other customers, mostly younger Hispanic women with their children, would smile at me knowingly when they saw me in the produce section. One grandmother, probably in her 70s but moving like someone much younger, struck up a conversation with me in broken English. She pointed to my bag of guavas and nodded approvingly. "Good for bones," she said. "My mother teach me." Across cultures, across generations, this knowledge had been passed down. But somehow, in America, we'd traded this wisdom for pills and prescriptions. We'd forgotten that our bodies know how to heal themselves when we give them what they actually need. Now I keep that fruit bowl on my kitchen table, just like Mama did. Always full, always fresh. And every morning, as I eat my guavas with my coffee, I think about the chain of knowledge that almost got broken. My grandmother to my mother to me, and now, hopefully, to my daughter and grandson. The expensive calcium supplements are still in my medicine cabinet, but they're covered in dust now. I keep them there as a reminder of how close I came to accepting decline as inevitable, how close I came to believing that getting older meant getting weaker, that 87 years on this earth had to mean fragility and fear. Dr. Martinez now mentions my case to other patients, not as a miracle, but as evidence that sometimes the simplest solutions are hiding in plain sight. He's even started asking his patients about their diets before reaching for his prescription pad, though I suspect the pharmaceutical companies don't appreciate that approach. The truth is, everything I learned about patience, about not giving up on your body even when doctors tell you it's too late, it all started with remembering what my grandmother knew instinctively. After everything I went through, I found the 60-year rule. It has 9 rules that explain exactly why everything I believed was wrong after 60. It changed how I see my family, my health, my money, everything. Check the description. Some mornings, when the sunlight hits my kitchen table just right, I swear I can smell my grandmother's back porch again. I can see her weathered hands peeling those guavas, the juice running down her fingers, her voice saying, "Good for what ails you." She was right. She was always right. At 87, I'm stronger than I was at 80. My bones are denser than they were at 75. My doctor says they're like those of a 50-year-old, but I think that's selling me short. I think they're exactly like the bones of an 87-year-old who remembered where she came from and what her body actually needed. The fruit bowl sits on my table now, always full of guavas, and every time I reach for one, I'm not just nourishing my bones, I'm honoring the wisdom of women who knew that food was medicine long before anyone thought to put it in a pill. I'm connecting with a strength that was always there, just waiting for me to remember it.